this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Sunday chat today, as discussed yesterday. Believe it. Not a plane all morning. As soon as I start to speak, they just stay there behind the clouds waiting. I'm joking. Yeah, so today's chat is going to be going over the resting type Dendrobiums. Now, you have to bear in mind, because of my lower temperatures in winter, indirectly all of my Dendrobiums are sort of resting, because the warmer grower ones, that's the Phalaenopsis type, the Latoria type, black hair type, there's another one, come on. Oh, come on, brain's gone. Rewind, start again. That's probably it, actually. Antelope type. Latoria type. Black hair type. Yeah, probably. Anyway, those that I don't talk about today are non-true resting types. In other words, they get far less water and hardly any feed purely because of my temperatures and shorter days. They're not growing. Well, there's no point in keeping pots and mounts soaking wet when a plant's not growing, and in the shorter days it doesn't get time to get going. You know, even if I could keep the temperatures up, they might tick over, but they're not going to grow well simply because the days are too short, unless I had artificial lighting. So if you can keep your day lengths up and keep your daytime temperatures up and not drop down too much at night, then all of those type of Dendrobiums will keep going. They'll be fine. But in amongst the Dendrobiums I've got are true winter resters that to one degree or another rely on that dried out sort of period with brighter light. It's not just the water and the feed, it's the brighter light too, to induce buds. Yeah, and without it they either don't produce any or don't produce as many, or they're not as good. Somewhere in there. If you take the nobly hybrid types, they're probably going to bloom anyway, but they might not bloom as well, and you might not know until one day you try the rest, try increasing the light dramatically and drop those nighttime temperatures down, and suddenly you've got twice as many blooms and they're bigger. So it does happen. So that was the idea for later. While we're here, as it's Sunday, thanks to all those who've subscribed, and for those who are watching that haven't, it will be appreciated if you did so. Costs you nothing, despite the terminology. It's just a click, and it helps the channel be more visible to YouTube, so it helps it grow, as does the thumbs up. Yeah, they both are seen by YouTube as growth, and growth is appreciated by YouTube. Apparently. Well, of course it is. It makes them more money, doesn't it? Their whole objective in life. There was something else I was going to say about YouTube. Yes, yesterday's video. It was quite a long video, certainly for well, not a middle of the week, but not a Sunday. It was quite a long video, and as a consequence, it takes longer to process it, and it takes longer to load onto YouTube. And when YouTube has loaded it, it then does some checks. One of the checks it does is for things like bad language, offensive nature, all that sort of stuff, as well as copyright. And it runs those checks towards the end of the load process. And yesterday, those checks were still running 3 hours later. I had a look on, I googled, checks taking too long on YouTube sort of thing. There's loads about it. And basically, it just happens now and again. And it's a sort of glitch. And I hate to say it, but the fastest way to get round it, you can either just leave it and let it run. Some people said they've gone to bed and got up the next day and they're still running. They just don't seem to want to end. There's a glitch there somewhere that just stops the process that says I've finished, sort of fails to run or fails to talk back to the screen or something like that. It's probably something quite simple. But the way round it, unfortunately, is to wipe the video, delete the video from YouTube. and start again, and load it again. And I did that. Of course, you've got the time it takes to load again. I mean, I've selected the text from the description and just pasted it back in, so I didn't have to retype that. And basically it loaded and the checks ran, and they took 7 minutes and finished. A glitch, but it's a flipping annoying glitch when you're in a hurry and you want to walk away and you can't because you have to keep, you know. Because until the check's finished, you can't make the video public. Because the checks are still running, it won't let you. So you're on hold and you have to sort of be there to do that, or the way I do it, you do. Anyway. Right, so that's that. Thanks to all the people who are sticking with the Patreon. I appreciate that some people may not stay forever. You know, they may have done a mouth won't work, contribution for a couple of months, and they sort of think, well, I've done my bit. You know, whatever you do, it's appreciated. If you hang in there, you know, as the months tick along, great. And if you haven't thought about doing it, the idea is to make a monthly subscription to the channel in the form of support. Yeah. Obviously, I've got to get out of this house. I've explained. I've even shown you the new place I'm going to, and my monthly expenditure is now going up a ridiculous amount as a consequence, because I never paid any rent here because it was my mum's place. So my monthly outgoings are now colossal in comparison to what they were, and they are beyond what I can afford. But what I'm doing is, once this house is sold, there'll be a pot of gold. So I'll have my monthly outgoings, I'll have my income against it, and there'll be a gap, and I'll dip into my pot of gold for that gap until it runs out, or I run out, whichever comes first. Oh dear. Yeah, so the contributions are to help keep all of this running at a much greater cost than I've been used to. Up until now, this has not been a problem. Yeah, it's all been fine, but it is a little bit... the more contributions I get towards the channel, let's put it this way, the less of the pot of gold I use up, and the more of it there might be left to actually leave to my 3 children. Yeah, that's another way of looking at it. Anyway, for those that are sticking with it, thank you very much. The buy me a coffee thing, coffee ticks along. I'll have a word about buy me a coffee. You pay either by PayPal or something called Stripe, I think it is, which I've never heard of, but those are the 2 types of payments I see. If you do buy me a coffee, make a note of it and remember that you've done it. And don't raise a case in PayPal because you think I've taken your money out of your account when in fact you paid it. Take care, it causes ructions. And we all have a memory lapse now and again, me included. But if you are prone to having memory lapses, do like I do next to my computer. I have a little notebook and a pen and I scribble things down. All different angles, little notes all over the place, just little reminders. Underline if it's important, big asterisk if it's very important. Because this doesn't always stay with us, you know, we have lapses. But yes, I think that's all resolved now, but you know, it worried me to death getting an email from somebody saying, why are you taking money out of my account? And I thought, I'm not. And then when I had a look at the transaction, I thought, well, that's probably a buy me a coffee because of the amount. It was like 3 coffees exactly to the penny. So I thought, that's a buy me a coffee. I didn't take that money, it was given. It's resolved now, but yeah, take care. What else? Oh, that's all. And the goods are there, the shop's there, you know, you can get mugs and t-shirts and stuff, you know, if you fancy that sort of thing. It all helps towards the channel, and at least with the, you know, with the shop, with the merchandise, you do actually get something. You can hold it in your hand. You give your other half a nudge and say, oi, oi, I'm not saying because I want it to be a surprise, but you see those mugs on there, if one was wrapped up for Christmas, it would be appreciated, but don't tell me because I want it to be a surprise. a surprise mug for Christmas. But it all helps. It all helps. Anyway, getting on to the subject, which is these resting type dendrobiums. So that's the only type of dendrobiums I'm doing today, are the true resters. And the ones that are so close they can be classed as true resters. Definition of resting: no feed from around, in my case, around the middle of November to the middle of December. And why there is no fixed point is that some go into their rest later than others. So it's not a calendar thing, it's not a fixed date, it's a look at the plant, which is what we're doing today. Yeah? But some start going into their rest as you go into November and head towards the middle. The days are going like this, night temperatures are dropping. It's a natural process for them. So that's that. My heater and thermostat gradually drop down through this period. I'm currently set to 16, so it drops to 15, comes back up to 16 overnight. Daytime, I mean, we've had a bit of sun on the glass today, so we're up to about 22, maybe 23. And that is also important for the resters, not just cold. You need that rise in temperature during the day. And the other thing that really does count, for me, I've noticed over the years, it seems to be more important than all the other stuff put together, the brightest light you can give them. That is, it seems to be the key factor for getting non-bloomers to bloom and getting those that have a few blooms to get a lot of blooms. It seems to be that key. Talking of which, I ought to have my shade netting off, but given the plants are coming out of here in a week or so, well, 2 weeks. Plants will be going, just as a matter of interest, my removals men are coming on the 7th. I get the keys on the 1st. I've got Hannah down for 2 days in between those 2 dates, and I'm hoping that by the time the removals men come to take my furniture, the majority of my stuff has already gone. You know, the boxes, shelf contents, drawers emptied out, all that sort of stuff is already gone and it's over there via trips in the car. I've got 2 days worth of Hannah helping with that, so I'm pretty sure I can get a lot of that done, biggest part of it. Then the furniture goes on the 7th. The next day I will probably be looking at starting on the plants, because once the furniture's gone, I want to be out. I want to be gone because it's going to be quite uncomfortable to stay. I'm having to move into a single bed in a bedroom that's a spare bedroom, basically, because my bed will be gone. Yeah, I'll only have a chair. There'll be nowhere for the cats. It all starts getting reduced down to minimalist, if you see what I mean. So I'm hoping to get the plants out 3 day maximum, probably 2, but it could take 3. Because all the plants, as I've said, have got to come out of here and get out of the way, which once the furniture's gone is a doddle. Packed up in boxes in the lounge, done. They stay there until everything is out of here, has been taken over to the new place and set up, plugged in, ready to go. Then the plants go over. And that could be 3 trips, the plants. It's a lot of boxes. You know, if you take a box the size of this top and then start putting plants on, as far as big plants are concerned, big pots like this, you probably get 6. You might get 8. Yeah? Well, now a lot of my plants are mounted, but if you're only going to get 6 or 8 large pots in a box, how long does it take to put those plants in that box, pick that box up and chuck it in there? That's no time at all. Next box. Yeah? Next 8. And as the pots get smaller, it'll be like a dozen in the box, or even 20 of the little tiny ones. Yeah? So they're not going to take long to get them out. The mounts are going to be a pain in the proverbial, but they'll get done. Right, before we go, blooms, 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 blooms. We have a look at the zygo. This is the zygo I bought to prove I can grow a poor zygo, because it was in a pretty bad state. Well, we got 2 spikes, nice spikes, nice blooms, quite pleased with that. New growth came out in a bit of an unexpected place, which is why it's so close to the edge of the pot. But nonetheless, it's come out close enough to the media that the roots have gone down into the pot, which is good. There's probably another lead going to come over here at some point. But anyway, 2 spikes off that growth. It's an immature growth. That's what the zygos do. They push their spikes up alongside the growth, and then gradually that growth increases in size and swells up and completes its root system. So that's that. I'm quite pleased with that, considering it was a poor quality plant bought deliberately as a poor quality plant. Is that daft or what? You know, you go along, you know, there's what, 8 plants for sale or something or other, and you pick on one of the worst deliberately. Duh. But there was a reason. There was a reason. And then we've got this little Odontoglossum type. And it hasn't properly opened yet, but you'll get the gist. You get to look inside and have a deco at the colours. So bright yellow and reddy orange banding and blotches with effectively a white lip. It's yellow at the moment, but it will probably go white with a red blotch on it, a single red blotch. There's another one that looks very much like this, and the bloom looks very much like this, but the lip's different because it hasn't got a single red blotch. It's got some blotches on, and they're a different colour. And there's another spike. Would you believe it? There's another little spike coming up there. Jolly good. So one to follow on. That's that one. And then there's me thinking my bobcat isn't going to open its blooms for ages because they're not big enough, and blow me, they are. One has opened. This is some spike, this is. Dead leaf. Right, so this is effectively, I believe, they're now called Oncostelli. That was yesterday, God knows what it is today. Could have changed again. And it might change back the day after, who knows. But it's wildcat bobcat. There's a whole set of wildcat Oncostellis, Oncidium types. And they each have a big cat name, like Cheetah was my favourite, but I lost it. And this is Bobcat. There are others. Don't think there's a lion though. Anyway, attractive blooms, a waxy look to them, deepest red, burgundy red, slightly lighter red on the lip than the actual petals and sepals, and the pebbles and setals, you know what I mean, are edged with like gold, just a touch of gold. And when these are lit up from behind, that gold lights up. So that's just opened as well. Whoa. Sure, I'm going to clobber the top of that spike. So that's that one. It's up there in the roof, out of the way. And we have a Tolumnia has opened up. He looks up in the air and it's empty. That's because I'm in the middle of watering. I did say I'd be doing this in stages today. Now, a lot of my most of my Tolumnias have not got tags, and I said it's not a problem because I know what they all are because I've got pictures of them. So all I need to do is wait till they open. So this one's opened, and this one is Jarrac Firm Hickory. So Tolumnia Jarrac Firm Hickory. Lovely blooms, deep red, with distinctive yellow markings that form a heart with the point missing at the bottom. That's the best way I can describe that yellow shape in the centre. It's a heart, yeah, but the two sides don't quite meet at the bottom, so they don't form a point, but it is a sort of heart shape in a beautiful deep yellow. So yeah, so that one's opened as well. There's another Tolumnia with buds that will open soon, and there are buds around that we've gone over, which we'll leave for today. So that's it. Now, out of the plants that are down at the moment, because they've been, all this lot have been watered, and I'm using this break literally to start the filming because I've got to compress everything today. I've got a lot to do today. But out of the Dendrobiums that are down, that live up here, 2 of them are resters, and they are slightly different resters. I'll explain why. Right, this is one. This is Dendrobium tortilli, and I'm impressed with my latest two canes. It looks like the plant keeps growing two canes, but it's actually two plants. So each plant is only growing one. So last year each plant grew these two canes, and this year they've grown those two canes. So they're quite impressed with those two canes. It is highly likely that we should get some blooms on these two canes in the spring. Couple of scale. Only a couple. Just rub off. Yes, so now this doesn't cool right down in winter where it comes from, but it does lose the rains. And they can be found in semi-deciduous forests, not truly deciduous forests. So brighter light, yeah, rains dropping right off, and without the rains washing stuff down out the trees, obviously very little feed, yeah, but not such bright light that you would get in a deciduous forest. But yes, an increase in light. But what's different about this one is the night temperatures don't drop right down. Where this one comes from, it doesn't get that cold. So although it's a rester, it doesn't need the chill like some of the others. So slightly different, only slightly. So that's that one. I'll go back up in the roof in a minute while I get the others out. And then there's another one down here. That was a non-bloomer. And so is the one I've now got hold of here. And I'm still not sure this is what it says on the tin. This is Primulinum variety Laos. That's what it was bought as. But the canes really don't look anywhere near as big as they should be. And it's difficult to say it's a young plant when it's got this many canes. And all of these canes are similar lengths. Now, okay, the two that I've just grown this year are longer, but they're still not the sort of length that a Primulinum should have. I mean, it may be that variety Laos is slightly smaller, but I don't think it is. Pictures I've seen have got what I would call full-length canes. So I'm not sure this is what it says on the tin, but until it blooms, we're never going to know. Now, we may get a bud or two on these canes here, because these are reasonably swollen. They've gone deciduous, they've dropped their leaves, so we may get a couple of buds on there to prove whether this is what it says it is. Yeah, but that needs a rest, but it's in the same category as the one we've just looked at. The temperatures don't drop right down, but apart from that it would get brighter light and the rains would drop right down. There would still be some mist and fog around, there'd be some early morning dew, so it's not bone dry for that, you know, for those months. It's just an awful lot drier without the heavy rains that it's been used to in the growing season. So it slows right down. It is a fully deciduous dendrobium, but it will depend what happens to it in the winter when it drops its leaves. But if it gets quite cold and it's colder than it would like, it'll dump its leaves quite quickly. If it sits about the right temperature, it'll dump them at its proper time, whenever that is. And if it stays too warm, it might even keep its leaves for an extra year, like a couple of others I've got. Right, so those are they. Right, we'll break off now. I'll finish my coffee, get all this lot put back up so that I can get at the rest of the stuff. And once I've got all the stuff down to water, I can get at the things that I'm not watering today because they're fully resting. So I'll be able to get at everything and we can go through the rest of it. I'll be back. I did say this would be in bits today because it's as I come across plants, I'll film them. If they're going to be watered, water them and put them back. This is pots. Pots are not getting watered today. Now this is Prima Donna, and it looks in a bad way, but basically all it is it's doing autumn. And some of the older leaves are coming off of the canes. That's all that is. They're yellow and they fall off. And as long as they're not on your latest canes, that's what they're supposed to do. Now, what's this one doing? Well, unfortunately, this is still growing. The latest cane on here is still in active growth. Yeah? So when I go round and water my pots, this one will get some, until such time as the terminal leaf comes on there. Now what will probably happen with this is that we will get some blooms on it at the appropriate time, late spring, and they will be filling in gaps from before. So like this cane here has bloomed at the top, it stops there, it's the lowest bud. So it will now bloom on these bits down here. In fact, there's a nubbin showing there already. Yeah? So this will bloom on the lower part of that cane. It will probably do the same on this cane, and again, there's a nubbin there. So it's going to bloom on the lower portion of this cane. This one is probably done. This one is probably done. And then we've got our shiny new cane, which, if it does bloom, will be late in the year. It may have a later blooming just on that new cane. The new cane may wait till the following year. But as far as resting is concerned, the plant itself is in a state of rest, but it's still growing a new cane. So it's in a halfway house. So it still needs some hydration and, if possible, a bit of feed if I've got some on the go. And that should push this cane on. But the cane's not going to be growing at the rate it should be because, again, short days, lower temps. Although lower temps don't affect nobly hybrids that much. So let me get that one out of the way. As I said, that's just in an odd place and it is in a pot. Most of my dendrobiums are mounted that come into this category, but not all. In fact, most of the nobelies are actually in pots. Right, so let's do those now because I'm not watering them. So those are on this shelf, all of them. So we should be able to get at them relatively easily. These are not they. I'll stop when I get to one. Right, this is one. Another nobly type. This is a biggie. And two new canes on the go here. One here and one here. Not quite as large as last year's largest cane, but very, very close. And that, in case you hear me talk about a terminal leaf, to me they are blatantly obvious. That is one. The leaves come out alternately, all up the cane except for the top one, which has a more upright look to it. Yeah? And no sign of another one coming. So that's got its terminal leaf. So has that. This is in a state of rest. It's a nobly type, but it's a nobly hybrid. It's also slightly out of season, but maybe next year it will get back in season. Out of season is when a plant was forced into bloom at a nursery at a time of year that is not normal for it. And it can take 2, sometimes even 3 years to settle back into a routine when it blooms at a regular time each year. But this one hasn't quite got there yet. I think if it hasn't now, it certainly will next year. That's that one. Have we got any more in here? No. What's that one? Oh. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a nobly type as well. It's one of Jeff's. Just by the look of it. The trouble is when you get a name that you've got a job to find, it's difficult to tell. But looking at the apex of the cane, the shape of the canes, the way the leaves are sat, I would say that is a nobly type. And as a consequence, it has finished growing. As I say, this is the cane it's grown this year, and it has a terminal leaf. So it has finished growing. This is Dendrobium Oriental Smile Fantasy. Until it blooms, it's anybody's guess, but it is a nobly type. There's the giveaway. That is a bud stump where a bloom has been. Well, if it was a Phalaenopsis type, it wouldn't be there. It would be sticking out the top for the first actual bloom. And again, this one's showing signs of nubbins. There's one there, one there. and again farther down. So we will get blooms on this cane, maybe or maybe not on the new one, and it's even possible to get a bloom or two on the old cane. But it's only got 3 canes, yeah? So that's all it's got to work with. But we will get blooms on one of them, and we'll be able to see that. Now, I took that from Jeff's. It went into the National Collection, and it turned out to be, Marius said it was spare. So he said, did I want it back? Well, I looked up the blooms and I said, yes, I do want that back. Blooms on that are gorgeous. And I can't wait to see them. Right, so I'll break off again that. That is the end of the pots. No more resting type in pots. That's it. So everything else is mounted, and I'll show you those once the ones I'm watering are out of the way and hung up to drip. I'll be able to get at the ones that are resting. So again, I'll be back. Okay, last bit now. This is a good point to go over those that you will read drier in winter. Take that with a pinch of salt, but don't ignore it. And what it comes down to is, like I've said with orchids, are they growing? Yeah, I mean, if you take my Friedrichianum, drier in winter, but what's it doing? Well, it's growing a new cane here, another big one here, and 2, 3, 4 new growths at the top. So it's in active growth. Can't slow that down. So you keep it going. If that's what it wants to do, let it go. Same with Hercoglossum. This is always classed as drier in winter, and I treat this one totally different to everybody else because I don't. I treat the winter as part of its growing season. So I just spotted one new growth with a few scale on. So we'll have them while I'm there. So I say, with bugs, if you see a bug, kill it. Don't think, oh no, I've got bugs on that plant, and put it back. Kill the blinking things while you can see them, while it's in your mind. And, you know, in this case, while they're on tender new growths. But this is just a tiny little outbreak. These are little white dots in places. So, you know, it's not an outbreak as such. But there's still a few, still worth having a go. Yeah, Hercoglossum, same thing here. You've got longer canes still in active growth, yeah, and you've got lots of new growth coming out at the top here. It's in active growth. It's going to grow on through the winter, albeit slower than it would. But this got disturbed. It's, having been disturbed, it's generated the best root system it's ever had, so that's good. But it meant that its new growths came up late, and they are relatively immature growths for the time of year. But they'll grow on through the winter slowly. But the good bit about this plant is they'll also grow on through the whole of next year and catch up. So that's good. So drier in winter, but watch what they're up to. If they're growing, help them out. Right. Jenkinsii, totally resting. It will drop a few leaves during this winter. Not many, but it will drop a few leaves. Just a few on some of the older bulbs. Totally resting now, no growth, and this is the point where the bulbs that look shriveled will get a bit more shriveled. But you have to judge it. Don't let them don't let them suck right in so that there's nothing left of them. You know, keep your eye on them, but they naturally crinkle. So no more feed for that until I either see spikes or growths. No feed. And very little water. And when I do water it, it doesn't get water poured over it, it gets a little trickle. Just a little dribble in a couple of places that can then be allowed to soak in through the moss underneath the plant. So totally resting. This one, Jenkinsii, needs the bright light. It seems to do it the world of good, and I proved the point last year because of where it was positioned on its shelf. The light was coming in from here. So if you look at the curve on the plant, this bit round here didn't get, it was in its own shadow, and this bit didn't bloom. and this bit bloomed its head off. Needs the bright light in the winter. Cooler temps, probably. If you can do it, great. If you can't, don't panic. It'll probably bloom anyway. And next to that is Lindleyi, or aggregatum as some people still insist on calling it, but not me. I only mention it in passing. Again, totally resting. No growth going on whatsoever. Finished swelling its bulbs, finished doing its leaves, and well, that was big bang. Correct me if I'm wrong, but has anybody else seen Dendrobium Lindleyi with a bulb with two leaves on? Because I haven't, but I got one. 2 leaves on one bulb. That's very unusual. At least I believe it is, you know. I'm probably going to get loads of comments now. Well, mine's got 3 or 4 with 2 leaves on. Well, so be it. Then I've learnt something. But I've never seen that before. So totally resting, no feed whatsoever, and trickle of water every now and again just to stop the bulbs getting too desiccated. They look desiccated to start with, but they can get worse. Just don't let them get too bad. That's that one. And next, up here, we've got a nobly type on a mount. Well, this is Comet King. It's grown a nice new cane this year. This will bloom next year. This cane here that pushed a couple of blooms out last year will probably bloom again a bit lower down. So this will probably produce some blooms like here, here, possibly here, just coming down that cane. Unlikely to bloom anywhere else, this one, I suspect. But it should bloom on the latest cane, which has grown on quite nicely, bigger than the previous one by a bit. And it's just producing its terminal leaf. So this is just finishing growing. It hasn't quite finished yet, yeah, but it's finishing. These 2 leaves aren't right, yeah. This one is going to grow a bit, I suspect, and angle over a bit, and this one will stay upright. And it's still got some swelling to do, so it's not in full rest yet. Being a nobly type, best light I can give it, yeah, up in the roof, near the glass. Feed, if I've got some on the go next time I water, well in fact I'm watering now and I've got a bit of feed on the go, so I'll do it now. It is still growing. Not a soak, a trickle. If I don't do that now I'll forget. Just to finish that cane off. So nobly type. Same for all of these. Brightest light that you can. Certainly in the depths of winter they'll take sun through glass. They'll be okay. Quite sturdy looking things. And no feed unless it's finishing off some canes, in which case keep it going, and reduce the watering down according to the plant, yeah. And as I said, with the nobly hybrids they can get a bit out of step sometimes, where they grow on through a winter, which messes you up a bit. But you have to average things. Do the bright light, reduce the temperature down at nights, do all that, but don't reduce the water down to virtually nothing. Don't go that mad if there's still growth going on. Just go steady. But it can still be semi-rested, even though it's still got a bit of growth going on. But this has probably only got a week or 2 left, and then it'll have finished growing. And we'll be into December by then. So. Right, that's that one. Next one, big one. I've picked it up now, it's a case of what the hell is it? It's Nesta, Dendrobium Nesta, which is a wonderful hybrid. The beautiful depth of colour on this is absolutely stunning. And fragrance, it's got everything going for it. But what it has got as a remount back in the year, that's actually set it back. And because it's been set back, it's still in active growth despite it being November, which is a right pain. Now this could reduce the blooming next year, because the main cane that's going to bloom, yeah, this one bloomed last year, so it's unlikely to do it again. The main cane that's going to bloom hasn't finished growing, despite it heading towards the end of November. And it pushed up a secondary cane even later that certainly hasn't finished growing either. So I've got two canes in full active growth, which are not going to grow as well as they would back in the growing season because of the short days. Lower temperatures for this probably wouldn't stop it growing. It's used to a cooler winter in you know, where it would come from. I know it's a hybrid, but what's in it, you know, if you see what I mean. So I've got to keep this one going. I've just got to keep it going. Now that may reduce next year's blooming, or it might make it late. Yeah, because these canes are still growing at this time of year. And because they're still growing, that gets watered properly. I've got two active large canes growing here, so that gets water. I've got a little bit of feed in this water. It's just MSU, and it's 130 parts per million, so it's a nice low level feed for this time of year. So that's that one. And then the other long one up here, which is the last one for today. What do you mean, oh goody? And this is, what is it? This is a phyllum. And what this one is doing is all of its main canes, that's these long ones, have finished growing. So it's finished its seasonal growth. But unfortunately, when this was remounted, it had quite a lot of kikis, which were planted on the mount to bush it up. And those are still growing, but only slightly. I think this one, yeah, it's still got a new leaf coming, but it's weak. So it's finishing. That one's finished, that's finishing, and that one's finished. So it's effectively had it. It's not really growing anymore now. And as a consequence of that, that's not getting watered. Yeah, all the resters, things like Jenkinsii and stuff, that none of those got watered today. They got a trickle last time round, so they certainly don't get any this time round or the next time. It'll be they'll be in the new place before they get any more water. Anyway, so watch your growth. That's all I can say. You know, even if it's a true winter rester, if it's still growing, you've got to make your decision. Do I keep my plant growing and get the best out of its growth that I can, or do I sacrifice some of that growth for the blooms? And you may have to offset one against the other, because you might not be able to do both. Okay, but true winter resters, bright light, cooler nights, cut the feed out and reduce the watering dramatically, but not altogether. And that will how much you continue watering, how much they get, how much of a trickle and how often, is totally dependent on your night temperatures and your atmospheric humidity. The higher your humidity, the less often you need to water. That's the equivalent, to a degree, of the mist and the fog and the morning dew, is your higher humidity. If you haven't got that, then they will need a little bit more water, a bit more often. But it's better to do a trickle now and again than give them a soak in the middle of winter. Much better to do a trickle. So there we go, that's that. That's Sunday done. What videos I'm going to be doing in the near future, I haven't a clue at the moment. I really haven't a clue. Nothing. Empty. Zero. Refill now. Yeah, I'll come up with some things, I'm sure, but you know, I mean, we did the larger oncidiums as a video, weekday video. We've had a look at the holy clay pots. That was yesterday, I believe. Losing track again, and yeah, I mean, there are little sets of plants that can come out and have a look now and again to make a, you know, nice orchid video with a bit of care thrown in, all that sort of thing, and a look at some plants, discuss what I expect of them, you know, just in little sets. You know, I mean, I could do the Miltoniopsis as a little set. I could do the Restrepias as a set, or or the Masdevallias and Draculas. That'll be a small set. That set might get bigger. If I really have got a cooler growing area and I'm not going to get that excessive heat over that, literally 6 months worth of excessive heat that really drains those sorts of plants, if I'm not going to get that, or nowhere near as much of it, we may have some more of them. It's not that I don't like them, it's just they don't grow very well here. And if I get half a chance, the Miltoniopsis will go up in numbers because I really like those plants. They just don't like it in here in the summer. And by the time they've recovered from it, it's back again. So they don't do very well. Anyway, that's it for today. And thanks for dropping by. As I said, my mind is... the conveyancing firm have got in touch. They are a type of solicitors that deal with house selling and buying. It's they specialise, conveyancers. They're solicitors at the end of the day. And the firm have got in touch, via the people that are selling the house, a man of which will be here in a minute to take some photos. Whereas with the inheritance tax forms, I thought, big sigh of relief, forms done. Guess what? 14 forms to fill in, including the Law Society form, which is 18 pages long. And it's quite funny. I love it when people are not technical and they say things that can't be done. The type of documents they've sent me cannot be updated. And many of the boxes need to be ticked. Yeah, that sounds like a frog. Blinking well does, Can't think on how on earth it got in here. We'll have a look round in a minute. The trouble is, it could be a tiny little one. It could be outside. It could be a bird up on the gutter making a strange noise, or up on the roof. Sidetracked. What was I on about? Yes, forms. Yeah, so the Law Society form has got lots of boxes to tick, like yes or no, things like that. Well, that's not very easy to do if you're updating a document online. Where's the tick on your keyboard? Yeah? And in addition to that, the forms they've sent are non-updatable. Now, I can print them off and write all over them, and then they've said, and return them to this address, which is an email address. That means I've got to print them, I've got to download them from the email, onto my computer, laptop. I'm going to have to print them, write all over them, scan them back in, and attach them to an email to send them back to them. As if I'm just sitting around here with nothing to do. Now I know why they're so cheap, because I'm doing all the flipping work. But going with this set of conveyancers is going to save us a lot of money. It's going to save us quite a lot of money. But again, Muggins here gets to do the work. Nobody else has volunteered. But yeah, there's lots of other forms that are just 1 or 2 pages. Like there's a form about the conservatory, did it get planning permission, this, that and the other. Well, I'll have to put a covering letter when I send it all off. This is an executor's sale. The people selling it don't know the answers to many of these questions. So you can keep on asking as often as you like, you're probably not going to get an answer. So we'll run with that. Well, that's a crow. That noise I do know. So perhaps it was a bird. Perhaps it was a crow with a sore throat. Anyway, I will leave it at that. As I said, my woes of form filling in. It's not like I'm rushed off my feet, but I have got to move. I am moving house at the moment. And the guy who's coming around to take the photos is my agent, basically, my selling agent. And he did say there is no rush. Don't worry about filling those forms in yet. I've got somebody coming next Friday to do the energy performance certificate, which you have to sell the house nowadays. And they're not coming till Friday. And Friday, the document that they produce, whenever I get that, has to be part of the advert to sell the house. So the ad for the house can't go up yet, and yet the board's up outside. A man snuck round yesterday and put the for sale board outside the house. I didn't see him. He snuck that in a bit quick. But that's not my problem. It's got a phone number on it that's not mine. So any inquiries about the house are not my problem at the moment. And there's no advert yet. So they'd have to verbally tell them about it. Anyway, so yeah, the house is effectively on the market. The sign's outside the house now. I don't suppose we'll be doing any viewings for at least a week, possibly 2. And that is going to interrupt my moving house. And quite honestly, my moving house takes priority at the moment. You know, we will go from there. But yeah, another shed load of forms to fill in. Most of it is don't know, yes, yes, don't know. So, you know, I've just got to print them off. But my shopping arrives tomorrow, my food shopping, home delivery. I'm going to have to get another flipping wad of paper. So all the stuff I've been doing has used up all my printer paper, you know, and I've now got another load. I've got some photographic quality paper for printing, you know, if I ever printed like photos or anything like that. But I'm not using that for printing flipping documents, so I need to get some more paper. Got the ink, you know, I have to put in an expense claim for all this stuff that I'm spending. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you've enjoyed the dendrobium type stuff. Lots of people do this time of year. They start getting into panic mode, don't know what to do. Hopefully that's helped a bit, you know. But every environment's different. I have to keep saying that. You know, if you're growing in the home, you've got a different set of temperatures, a totally different environment to this. You know, this has got the high humidity. This is up to 90–95% at night. You know, and drops down to 15. Lowest point between 15 and 16. Your house isn't going to do that. Yeah, and during the day, if I'd taken my shade netting off, we'd be getting, like now, the sun would be coming straight in through the glass. I'm going to get on and do that simply because when I get to the other place, they won't get the sun through the glass. So my resting type dendrobiums like this that need the bright light might not do as well for me ever again because I haven't got the light. We shall see. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.